So Pete Buttigieg is a young Indiana mayor. He's running for president. We haven't really talked much about him to this point because honestly, he's very young and his record is pretty thin. And there's not much information out there about him yet. But what we do know is he's inspired by Bernie. He says he's inspired by Bernie. He wrote something that was like pro-Bernie in college or something to that effect. And he had a CNN town hall last night. We're not going to look at the town hall comments, but I want to show you what he said on MSNBC prior to the town hall. He made some comments on Medicare for All. Let's take a look.
The Green New Deal. The Green New Deal. You're for Medicare for All with a few asterisks.
Yeah.
You see this tension between democracy and capitalism, which some of us don't see, or at least see that it can work out. It sounds like you're going to get defined pretty far over on the progressive spectrum.
Look, I think what we have to decide is, are we going to keep being defined by where these fence posts are, or are we going to do what the right very successfully did over the last 40 years and redefine them? Medicare for All is a great example. Again, ACA, which was a conservative proposal, came to be caricatured as left-wing by a very disciplined right-wing message machine, right? What is Medicare for All? It's a compromise. I mean, in the UK, you got national health care. That would be the left-wing, the true left-wing position. The true right-wing position is free for all corporate. And the compromise position is a single-payer system where you have private doctors but a public payer. We've got to stop allowing the right to move the goalposts and characterize the entire center of the...
Yeah, he pretty much nailed it. Now, yesterday at the CNN town hall, he kind of shot himself in the foot a little bit. I was watching it live, and I heard him talking about Medicare for All, and it sounded like he was for it. But then after the fact, people on Twitter pointed out to me, no, he actually said he's for a Medicare for All buy-in, which is a public option, which is not Medicare for All. So it's a shame because he took all these great arguments, and he took all this momentum and some solid points he was making, and he just decided to throw it off a cliff by saying, no, I want Medicare for All buy-in. So in other words, he's using the weasel words, which means if you're using the weasel words at this point, you're negotiating against yourself, which means you're not going to actually fight for Medicare for All, which means you won't get it implemented. We need somebody who's like a crusader and who says, no, this is what we're getting, end of conversation. So that's why Bernie's obviously the way to go. But as far as these comments go here, what he said here, this is an argument that we've been making on this show for a long time now, which is the Overton window has been shifted so far to the right. And corporate Democrats have allowed it to be shifted so far to the right because they've decided, yes, our left-wing position is going to be Romney care, basically. It's going to be an individual mandate system, Obamacare, which keeps the for-profit private health insurance companies in control and is not, by any stretch of the imagination, left-wing. In fact, the Heritage Foundation came up with the plan, which is a right-wing think tank, and people like Newt Gingrich and Chuck Grassley supported this in the 1990s. And now all of a sudden, all the Republicans hate it because a Democrat proposed their idea. So what he's talking about is, in a world that made sense, the compromise position is a Medicare for All system where we have private doctors and public funding. Whereas the true left-wing position is a UK-style system where you have public funding, so tax money, funding public institutions and public doctors. So everything's government employed and everything is the government, whereas with a French-style single-payer system, it's private providers, but tax money that funds it, so public funds. So he's talking about the mid-position, the compromise position is, okay, you know what? Fine. You don't want to have a fully nationalized healthcare system? Gotcha. Even though the UK is ranked number one in the world, according to some studies, and they have the best system, and it's just way better than ours. Fine. You want to have a compromise position? We'll let everything be private in terms of providers, but it's public funding. So, and that's the point he's making. He's like, if you drag the Overton window and the spectrum of debate that makes sense back to a reasonable position, that's the conversation we'd be having. But instead, we live in this oligarchy/corporatocracy, and just everything is geared towards defending the status quo and pumping up the for-profit health insurance companies, and the people are not considered. So that's a great point he made. Other Democrats should be making it, and we should be having this conversation about dragging the Overton window back to a position that makes sense.